Hello friends. Today we're exploring the question, if you were miking up a speaker cabinet, would you rather use a darker sounding mic towards the center of the speaker or a brighter sounding mic towards the outside of the speaker? Now if you've ever mic'd up a speaker cabinet, you know that towards the center of the speaker it's brighter, fizzier, but it's also more articulate and can sound more punchy and clear. As you get to the edge of the speaker, it gets darker, sometimes fatter, sometimes duller, but it can tame some of those shrill highs. Now, this test would have been really hard if I had used, say, a ribbon mic and a condenser mic because the way that they pick up sound is so different. Their output is so different from each other. A ribbon mic typically has lower output, and a condenser usually has very high output. It just seemed unfair. Now, these microphones, I've decided, are perfect for this kind of test. Why? These are the SHURE KSM 313s, which are dual-voiced ribbon mics, meaning that the front side of the microphone is a little bit darker and the back side of the microphone is a little bit brighter. And it's not a huge change, but it definitely is noticeable. So, with these two microphones, I can put the darker side in the center of the speaker and the brighter side towards the edge of the speaker, and we're still listening to the same microphone in theory. So what we're going to do is we're going to record both of these at the same time, and we're going to listen to them. Now, these mics are pretty dark in general. Even the bright side is still pretty dark. So we're also going to compare them after processing, because sometimes they're so dark that it might hide things from us and we might not really be able to tell what kind of fizz or harshness or edge or breakup that we're really dealing with, because the job of many ribbon mics is to smooth out that sound. So let's try it out. So for the setup on this test, I'm using a hot output Gibson 500T humbucker in the bridge position of my guitar, and I'm running straight into the amp, which is a JCM 800 kind of souped up Marshall clone, and running into a 412 cabinet into a Vintage 30 speaker. And we're using an A Designs Pacifica mic pre. The gain is level matched between the mics to about as close as I could get them, which is like 0.1 dB, 0.2 dB, something around there. They're very, very close, level matched. And then I ran straight into Nuendo. I'm using a Lynx Aurora N converter, and that's it. It's very simple. Now, because these microphones are so dark, I wanted to show you what they sound like by default. So those are incredibly dark sounds, and realistically, I probably wouldn't ever need a sound that dark. Not only that, I'd typically be combining this mic with a dynamic mic or maybe a condenser, or I'd be using it on a sound that was really overly bright. So what I've done to be a bit more realistic and also to help us hear better what's going on, I've put a EQ on my master bus and made both of them brighter equally, so that you're hearing a bit more of a realistic guitar tone that would be used in a mix, rather than these two very dark microphones. But because the EQ is identical on both, we'll have a better side-by-side comparison. So this is what it sounds like with some FabFilter Pro Q applied. Yeah, that's a much more realistic tone. So let's now compare these two microphones. We have the darker side of the mic put in the brighter spot on the speaker versus the brighter side of the mic put on the darker spot of the speaker. So let's hear how they compare. So what are my conclusions about this test? Well, I actually surprised me a little bit. So in the center of the speaker, yes, it's clearer, yes, it's punchier, yes, it's brighter, and initially that can seem better, but it also seems a bit more like resonant and harsh. It seems a bit more like pokey in the high mids and kind of piercing. And initially that could seem better because it's like, oh, it's going to cut through the mix, but you'd have to kind of EQ out some of those weird resonances. Now on the opposite side of the coin, the other side, the harshness kind of goes away when you put it out to the edge of the speaker, but you do lose some clarity and some articulation and some punch. So, as kind of predictable as it may sound, I would argue that the best place for the mic would be in between these two, right? Like, and it's probably a reason why so many people will put the mic just off the edge of the dust cap, not dead center, but just to the edge of it, because yes, you are getting some articulation from the dust cap, the center of the speaker. Yes, you are getting more brightness. Yes, you're getting attack, but you're not getting some of those harsh resonances in like the 2, 3, 4 kilohertz region that will just like totally wear out your ears after a while, and you just have to EQ them out. So instead, it does make a lot of sense why we like to put mics in that sort of edge of the dust cap position so often. So what I did was I actually summed the two microphones. I didn't want to, use a new performance, but I summed the two microphones and then readjusted the level to match to approximate maybe what it might sound like in between where those two microphones were. Maybe a microphone that was a little brighter than the dark side of that mic and a little darker than the bright side of the mic, and maybe placed in between. This is just an approximation, but to my ear, it sounds really balanced. You get a bit more articulation and you get a little bit less of that harshness in the high mids. So yeah, that's pretty interesting to me. As always, if it sounds good to you, then it is good. But I would recommend experimenting a lot with the mic position. Now, when you're this close to an instrument or to a speaker, moving the microphone an inch or two can make a large difference. So don't try moving it, 6 inches all the way out to the edge and then dead center. Try putting it, an inch to the right, an inch to the right, and slowly working it out to the edge until you find what you want. And try different microphones. As you move farther out to the outside of the speaker, you might find, man, now this microphone isn't quite working. Maybe I should use a brighter mic. So just keep that in mind when you're miking up guitar cabinets. Hopefully it'll get you the tone that you're looking for. As always, check out the Recording Lounge podcast at recordingloungepodcast.com. I'll talk to you guys next time.